Hello. I've never done this before, but I thought it'd be cozy to record a video by a fireplace. I am fascinated by the dynamics between men and women and how all of the dynamics that take place have been amplified on the internet. There's so much information out there. And one concept that fascinates me in particular, that's probably been around for a very long time, let's be honest, is the fragile male ego. Kind of this idea that men can dish it out, but they can't take it. It seems like this was a big topic of discussion after the Barbie movie came out because of how hilariously two-dimensional all of the Ken characters were portrayed. It was a really well done commentary on how women are often portrayed in films because, how often have we seen women play wildly two-dimensional characters in films or in stories just as the love interest, if you will, right? Or just as, often the love interest. And it was interesting to me to see a lot of usually conservative men freak out about it. It's just interesting to see how, for once, roles were reversed and to see that reaction. We are in 2024. For all of our progress in terms of equality, it still feels to me as though men and women are socialized in very different ways. And I suspect a huge part of this idea of male fragility comes back to how men are socialized. Men are taught that they are valued for their utility, for their performance. A man solves problems, a man fixes things. And this is in stark contrast to how women are socialized. And that is that they are taught that their value is in their beauty. Now, it's one thing to recognize that this is happening on a societal level, and it's another thing to recognize this within yourself. I would like to think that I am not caught up in sexist tropes about what a man does and what a woman does. And yet, I placed so much of my value only when I'm providing something, when I'm generating something, when I'm creating. A woman is not just her beauty. Of course, we are so far past that point. But I say that because a woman that believes that her value is entirely tied up in her beauty feels all of her value is lost if she loses her beauty. This is why aging is so much harder on women. And the same dynamic happens with men when you take away their sense of utility, their ability to be useful, or even just the idea that they're useful. This is why there's such a rise in crime and delinquency when unemployment goes up. It's tricky because you have to be very solid in yourself. You have to really believe in yourself and value yourself to recognize that you are more than just the work that you do. And sadly, a lot of men have not come to this conclusion. Now, I say this because this question of the fragile male ego might be more relevant than ever before, because as women are making progress and being valued for more than just their beauty, thank goodness, right? I don't want to live in an archaic world where women are just these objects of men's desire. Thank you, but no. As that's happening, men that have not found a deeper way to feel secure in themselves, to value themselves outside of their work, are feeling threatened. They're feeling threatened because women can now be of service, of utility. If women are doing that, and men think they are the ones that have to be doing this, but they're no longer the only ones that can do this, that's a threat right there. You're taking away the thing that men think makes up their worth. And by the way, I suspect this could get way worse as we get closer to living in a world where machines can do everything that we can, whenever that may be. Now, nobody knows what the fuck we're doing, right? We're all figuring it out as we go along. And the fragile male ego that's based around this idea of being of service and solving problems as they arise, that wasn't challenged when women were forced to be in the kitchen, when women were safe housewives. That's not the world we live in anymore. It's preserving this false idea that the entirety of your value as a human being is based on something external. Your ability to perform, to solve problems in the case of men, or your beauty in the case of women. And then when that goes away, if you lose that, then that's it. You're worthless. Now again, I'm generalizing because some men are valued for their beauty and some women are valued for their utility. But it's still the same problem. It's still buying into this false idea of where value comes from. And if we are ever going to get past the fragile male ego, or the fragility of ego in general, we are going to collectively have to stop buying into these false ideas. Now that is a very long and slow process. I think I'm going to have to be working on this on myself for the rest of my life. I feel fortunate to have made a lot of progress in detaching a little bit in terms of where I place my value. Because even just a few years ago, I thought people only cared about me based off of the things that I made, based off of the ideas that I shared with the world. I thought this was the only thing that would attract women. Fortunately, I don't still buy into these ideas. But the question of the ego is not something I'm going to do away with very quickly. The interesting thing I have noticed is that the more tightly you hold on to these ideas about yourself, the more tightly I held on to the ideas I had about, oh my gosh, I'm finally worth something because I have X amount of money in the bank account, or X number of subscribers, or I can do this, that, the other. The more tightly I hold on to those things, the more fragility there is. There's a fragility in my idea of who I am. Fragility comes from rigidity. It's like pulling a rubber band, right? And the more you pull it, the tighter it gets, the more taut, right? And the more likely, eventually, if you keep pulling, it's gonna snap. Okay, there's no simple way for me to conclude my thoughts on this, but I'll end with this idea. If someone ever reacts poorly to something, I have a tendency to believe that it's not because they're a bad person. Things like sexism, the male ego that doesn't want to be challenged by women, it's fear-based, it's fear. There's a lot of fear when you feel you're not in control, when you're not in power. And that's all that's going on here. It's just fear. We all want to be valued by others. We want to feel valuable. And when that is under threat, you end up with things like the fragile male ego. Just a few thoughts on this topic. I have a newsletter if you're intrigued to hear more of my ideas. And you can also listen to this in audio form if you look up No Backup Plan anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks for watching or listening, and I will see you next time.